Imagine working with your team on a project and you're trying to do everything over email. Things seem to be working well enough at the beginning. Once you start adding more and more than a couple of people or share more than a couple of files, the whole entire project becomes disorganized. Managing projects is tough enough. It's a struggle to juggle people, work, and expectations under pressure. Problem is, many project management platforms make it even harder by overcomplicating things, leading teams to abandon tools when the promise fades and frustration sets in. That's when teams turn to Basecamp. Famously straightforward and effective, teams stick with it and projects thrive on it. Basecamp makes collaborating on projects easy without having to waste time. Teams that use Basecamp send less email and have fewer meetings. If you are struggling with projects, sign up for Basecamp. The pricing is simple and they give you all the features on a single plan. No upsells, no upgrades. So go to basecamp.com/enigma. It's basecamp.com/enigma and try Basecamp for free. No credit card required and cancel anytime. Thank you, Basecamp, for sponsoring the episode. Entrepreneurs Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. So the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneurs Enigma. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneurs Enigma podcast. I'm Seth. I'm here with Rachael McCrary of Gather Labs. She is in the healthcare, biotech, and diagnostics industry, but then on the other side, she's in the intimate apparel industry. Yes, you heard that right. She does everything. You started in the fashion design side, and we'll get into how you got to the biotech and Gather Labs side. So actually, let's ask you straight out. How'd you get, give me your story.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Seth. Nice to talk
Hey,
to you
how's it
this morning.
going?
Yeah. I actually went to FITM first as a fashion
Okay.
design major. I came out of the womb as a fashion designer, my mom says. That I told her I wanted to make a pattern when I was 3. When I was 15, I was making my own clothes. I was screen printing merch for bands. I just learned how to cut and sew and make my own patterns by taping magazines together and then taking
Oh,
clothes
so
and
cool.
with a Sharpie and sort of changing what I didn't like about them and then cutting the fabric and making them.
That's
So
great.
that yeah, that was always just sort of naturally always what I wanted to do. I guess I was lucky in that way. So I went to FITM in San Francisco. I majored in fashion design. And then before my graduation, when I was done with my classes, I moved to New York City with $100 and not knowing what I was going to do. And my first job 5 days later after arriving in New York, I was at Victoria's Secret
Ooh.
and just as a assistant. But
Oh,
that
okay.
was
That's
that was
something.
oh, it was
Yeah.
great. I'm lucky most people don't get that
A
so
few a
fast, you
few
know?
days into New York City, you get a job. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So I worked for limited brands in different areas, and then I worked for other intimate apparel companies that do licensed product, branded product, private label. I developed my own brands, developed brands for
Nice.
celebrities, developed brands for department stores and specialty stores all over the world. I lived in Hong Kong and China developing bras for years and did sourcing and manufacturing also in Taiwan and in Europe.
So you're also a global traveler too. That's awesome.
I have been to 36 countries and lived in 5. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Um,
That's a lot.
I created my own brands and products several times. Along the way, actually had a shapewear company called Jewel Toned. I had a bra company called Charmed. My shapewear company was a seamless product.
Okay.
So then I invented a bra called the RX bra for plastic surgeons that has
Oh,
far
wow.
infrared yarn that increases blood flow and circulation, but is also cute and comfortable. I
There you
was on
go.
the television show Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch for that and some other noteworthy publications, and that really caught on because the other competitors in that space are just suboptimal. It was interesting because I bought all the products out there whenever we wanted to make the best
Mm,
post surgery bra possible. And I just didn't think that they were even remotely decent. They used like a hard elastic that I could tell was not from a lingerie factory. It was just like someone just threw something together that wasn't made by a lingerie expert. And then we
that's not
added the far infrared yarn. So that increases blood flow and circulation and oxygenation and actually improves breast health if you're having surgery or not. And
that's
it's,
fantastic.
Yeah, it looks really good
So you
entertaining
kind
time.
of so there's a connected yarn, not no pun intended, between intimate apparel and your way into the healthcare sector, kind.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So I was working on that, and in the beginning of the pandemic, some of the people I sold the bra to were asking me, what are these COVID tests people are talking about, PPE? So I was sort of thrown into that arena gladly. I thought,
Mm,
if I could just volunteer for a while and add value, like,
yeah.
sure. I thought it would be quickly, and it was not. I'm still here. So,
Yeah.
yep. And the end of February of 2020, my dear friend, Dr. Tam, who owns a biotech company, was teaching me about nucleic acid swab collection for RT-PCR. And then I got a crash course in molecular virology and helps write IFUs. And I had this
Wow.
natural knack for it. I have a photographic memory, and they kept asking me like, why does it come so natural? It was started being approached and poached by biotech companies across the country, and I was actually raised by a scientist. My grandmother
Oh,
is Dr. Anne McCrary, and she's this genius, lovely, amazing scientist who discovered a lot of plankton that hadn't been discovered yet, and
oh,
was just
wow.
this, a tenured professor at UNCW in Wilmington. And I
Yeah.
actually grew up in a lab, different kind of lab.
It
I
runs in the
guess
genes. It runs in the genes.
maybe.
Clearly, there's something there, so.
Yeah, if I got 10% of her brilliance, I'm doing amazing. But to be clear, scientists run gather labs. I run the business side, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in any way saying that replaces like 20 years of education, but I just,
No,
sort
but
of have
you know
not.
enough to run the business, which is,
Yeah.
you can't run a business if you have no idea what the heck they're doing on the other side. So we're gonna take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show.
You probably know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? I'm Jason Falls, and I host Winfluence, the influence marketing podcast. Now, you'll note I didn't say influencer marketing. I said influence marketing. Why? Because the goal is to truly influence an audience to take action. We talk about the strategies and stories that move beyond engaging just social media influencers and tap into your community to find influential voices. It's a different way of looking at it. We call it community commerce marketing. Influencers are still a piece of it, but there's so much more. I talk to creators, brand and agency side marketers, and the thinkers in the space to help grow your business. Come learn with me on Winfluence, the influence marketing podcast. Find it at winfluencepod.com, marketingpodcasts.net, or search for Winfluence wherever you get your podcasts.
Right. And what I observed, a couple things I think might be interesting for entrepreneurs, just to touch on something for RX Bra.
Yeah.
VCs had told me for years, we don't like niche markets. We don't like niche markets. RX Bra
Yeah.
really took off. And even though it's a niche market, if you can take over a whole niche market, that might not be so bad. So don't necessarily shy away from
Yeah.
that. Number one. Number two, when I was working with the scientists, these brilliant scientists that were
Hmm.
developing COVID tests, processes, and diagnostics, and taught me enough to be dangerous, why
Yeah.
it was such a beautiful marriage. I think oftentimes the mistake for entrepreneurs is I have this primary skill set. I should start
Hmm.
a company around this primary skill set. Okay, correct so far.
Yeah.
I should also run legal, finance, marketing, and operations. Not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
if you do have experience in legal, finance, operations, and marketing, because other placements before, cool. If you've just been a scientist in a lab or a doctor in an office or an artist
hmm.
painting and you don't have outside business experience, and you know what? Maybe you wake up and that comes natural to you, like this did for me.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But a lot of times it doesn't, right?
Hmm.
So finding team members or co-founders that know what you don't know, as opposed to aligning with people with parallel experience, is the
Yes.
best thing one can do.
You do what you're good at, hire for the rest.
Right. Or partner or whatever.
Or
So I was
partner,
like,
or yeah, team up. Yeah.
so we had this natural relationship where he was like, oh my gosh, you what I've been looking for my whole life. You can do all these other things. And I was just
Hmm.
like, oh, without your product and brilliance, like there would be nothing. Right. So the marriage of that is really great. And so I saw an opportunity while I was working with other private laboratories, while they're really great for certain things, speed and hospitality are getting lost. Also
Oh
tech.
my God.
So tech,
Yes.
there wasn't really a full tech stack that was had also a consumer interface and just some other things and some other things. We won't share that we saw some opportunities for improvement.
In the healthcare sector, like
Yeah.
it's antiquated.
A lot of carbon copies, like not using Google Airtables and Sheets and sort of all these, platforms
Yeah.
out there for team communication and data compilation and files and things like that.
It's amazing how backwards it can be. Yeah.
Crazy. So I was like, what if we built a lab like a startup? And obviously we got, scientists and regulatory officials to help us with the things that we didn't know.
Regulatory, especially. Yeah.
We weren't inspected recently and received a perfect score. So there is something to be said for the
Yeah.
tenacious, overachieving entrepreneurs that know how to download rules and regulations and follow them exactly. Right.
And understand them,
Um,
because rules and regulations are not an easy thing to read.
right. If you don't know what something means, you find someone that
Mhm.
does immediately. Um,
Immediately, yes.
so we made something for speed and hospitality, focus on patient care. I've had some autoimmune issues myself, so I know how hard it is to get testing sometimes. You have to go through several processes and wait and maybe go to somebody to get an order. And we just wanted
Mhm.
to make all of that vertical and super fast and
That is
super
brilliant.
easy, patient friendly, and doctor friendly. The doctors love it because they're
Fantastic.
oftentimes waiting for labs to get a prescription
Oh
or
my
to,
god,
excuse
it's
me,
so
so if
slow,
it
yeah.
gets it faster for them, then they say we make their work look better and that we're just an easy partner.
That's
So yeah,
fantastic.
we started percolating a few years ago and then we opened in January.
What's your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur versus being a cog in the wheel?
Yeah, people always ask me, should I be an entrepreneur? There's no right or wrong answer. And it takes
Mhm.
all different types of people and workers and craftsmanship in order to make society function. I say, do you value more security or
Yeah.
freedom? It
Mm.
usually goes one way or the other, right? Not
It
that we don't
does.
value both, of course we all do, but which do you value more? You really have to be honest with yourself, and only you can answer that, right? If you
Yes.
value freedom, then you need to be an entrepreneur. If you value stability and you want to know where your paycheck comes from and that it's just linear and stable, it might not move as much, but if that sounds like just more comfortable for you, and also you like that structure, that nine to
Mhm.
five structure and the team structure of management and things like that, which is all great. And large companies can't survive without it. Or if you
Yeah.
like, then, an employee, if you like the chaos and not really having structure and your ADHD and you want to work until you feel like playing and playing until you feel like working, as Martha Beck says, and you
Mhm.
want to go with the flow and create whatever you want. And maybe you get paid a little,
Mhm.
maybe you get paid a lot, but it's more result oriented. The more I put into this, the more I'll get out of it. Hopefully,
Uh,
not necessarily,
hopefully
but like
hopefully.
then being an entrepreneur would be the way to go. I do think to be an entrepreneur that's successful, not always, and there's no rules, right? I don't really like that because everywhere else there's different variables. But I do think that
Yes.
having had corporate jobs did help me be a better
Mhm.
entrepreneur, right?
Oh,
Because you
gotcha.
do learn that corporate structure. Because how can you build that if you've never experienced that?
Mm.
And also like having this burning feeling the entire time of like, I don't belong here. My soul's gonna die. That's a great feeling to have because how do you know unless you try it?
Yeah.
But when you're really young, like that's a really great thing to do. You do need probably some stability when your paycheck's pretty low and you need to
Mhm.
learn from other people.
Yeah.
So corporate can be good for early entrepreneurs. Probably just depends on where you live and what it is that you want to do. But if you're
Yeah.
later in your career, yeah, a mid-sized startup might be like that's it.
On the flip side, what's the scariest thing? What keeps you up at night?
It never feels like we're going fast enough. Like, no matter how
Mm.
fast we go, and people will say we're going at lightning speed, and it feels like we're drowning and tripping over ourselves.
Oh, I
It
hate that
never
feeling.
seems
Yeah.
fast enough. And then other people say that we work with, they're like, oh my God, you guys are so fast. You do everything so fast. Like, we give our corporate partners whiplash. And to us, it just feels like a glacial pace. So it's just like now
Mhm.
fast. And then sometimes like our investors and advisors are just like, you guys need to go fast, fast. And we're like, oh my God, we're gonna have a panic attack. So it's like working
It's
on
all
oneself
perception.
to learn how to take anxiety and turn it into excitement. That's a
Mm.
big spiritual lesson for entrepreneurs. But yeah, just the fear of are we moving fast enough? As
That's
a
a
more
good one, yeah.
experienced entrepreneur, I just constantly like to be paranoid about making sure that I'm not stuck on what I thought it was going to look like and always
Ooh.
pulling at 30,000 feet back and saying, okay, let's just sort of look to the bird's eye view. Like, are we still organizing this in the right way? Air traffic control. What's the newest priority? Are we
Mhm.
prioritizing the right way? Let's look at this, right? What's the most bang for our buck? B2C, B2C. What do we enjoy more? Is everyone on the team
Mhm.
like loving it? Like just being constantly paranoid that I'm not getting the tunnel vision when you're in the weeds and then is always taking a step back.
Mhm.
Let's reassess and reorganize pretty often.
Yeah.
Cash flow, man.
Oh
Always
my
on
god, that
receivables.
that's terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, when you have millions on receivables, it's just like, whoo.
I'm
And you're
sure.
still sort of like paying for your consumables and all that. I'm sure every person that runs the laboratory just raised their hand. nodded. Kudos to all of you guys because you learn how to manage it and find some solutions. And having things on receivables is better than not having anything on receivables, right?
Yeah.
I observe as a consumer when there's a new glossy startup, right? And
Yeah.
it's so great. You get that great customer service that everyone loves us for. That ease of I call, I talk to somebody. They fix it. Everything's great. It's like optimal. It's beautiful. Everyone's excited. It's the new glossy thing. And then as it grows, that just sort of dies and it turns
I know
into
it's the
that
worst.
dead
Yeah.
corporate whatever, which
Yeah.
that's okay. And then everything goes to a call center and then everything,
Oh,
it's just
yeah.
changes. Like, we talk about that all the time. Let's not
Mhm.
let that happen. What can we do? What steps can we take to make sure that we're in control of this, right? We're in control of our
Yeah.
destiny. It doesn't have to be that way. Let's
Yeah.
create a system that we can implement along the way so that the heartbeat doesn't die and the customer service, which is why we win,
Mm.
always maintained.
That's fantastic. And you're in Beverly Hills right now. You have one lab right now, right?
Yes, Gather Labs is a high complexity CLIA laboratory on Robertson Boulevard in Beverly Hills.
Good location.
Thank you.
And so what is the most important thing that you carry with you all the time?
You get out of things what you put into them. If you want
Mm.
something, go get it.
So true. It's simple, but you gotta make your own way.
Entrepreneurs are not lucky. They work hard. Typically, when you see a successful entrepreneur, that's their 10th thing. They've been in the ditch and they've been
It's
through
so
things
true.
that you have no idea about. Their struggle. As Ben
Oh my
Horowitz
God,
talks
yeah.
about in The Hard Thing About Hard Things, the best book I've ever read about entrepreneurship. It's the struggle. And then once everyone starts hearing about you, they're like, oh, that looks easy. Oh no. Oh no,
Overnight
no, no.
success.
Yes,
Oh
the
my
10-year
God.
overnight success, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's always blood, sweat, and tears behind everything. And if there isn't, they fizzle really fast because they didn't work hard enough. They didn't put the structures in. They didn't put the foundation down well enough, and they rushed through it. So, Rachel, where's your watering hole online? Where's the place that people can connect with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram at Gather Labs and at
Okay,
NYC Bella. You can find me at rxbra.com, gatherlabs.com. Yeah, ask me
you're
anything,
everywhere.
send me a note.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this has been great, Rachel. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
That was a great show. Hey, if you're enjoying Entrepreneurs Enigma, please give us a review on the podcast directory of your choice. We're on all of them. And these reviews really help others find the show. Also, if you're getting value from the show and want to buy me a coffee, go to the show notes and click on the link to help me stay awake while I bring you more great episodes to your ears. That's in the show notes, and I look forward to the next episode. Take care, guys. Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode. This podcast is one of the many great shows on the MPN Marketing Podcast Network.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Jonathan Gaby hosts a great podcast called Marketing Distilled. He's the master distiller. Jonathan, tell us what these fine folks are going to get out of listening.
On Marketing Distilled, you'll hear from industry experts and me to learn about more marketing things and taking those complex things and distill them down into actionable strategies or tactics.
Amazing. Where can people subscribe?
You can find the show at marketingpodcast.net or search for Marketing Distilled wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard him. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.